This week on LCARA Ham Radio, we're going to have a little fun antenna video. And I want to thank KY4KAT for purchasing this very inexpensive antenna. We're going to put it through its paces, similar to some previous antennas that we've done, just to see how something this inexpensive and probably not made that well actually works out in the real world. This week on LCARA Ham Radio. Alrighty, so here on the island, here in the kitchen, what do we have? Well, we have a little stubby antenna. Came in this nice little green bag, and believe it or not, for the same money, it came with a magnetic base. So let's open up both of these and let's take a look at what we got here. There's no label on this antenna anywhere. This came from, you guessed it, China. The closest thing that I can find on Amazon that I think this is called Eightwood, the number 8 or EIGHT wood antenna. It's a VHF UHF, so it's dual banded. You can see it's got an SO259 on this end, and that's all there is. Short and stubby. I got a feeling it'll probably be okay on receive, but I have no real expectations it'll do well on transmit, especially with the test that I'm going to put it into in just a little bit. Now, the next thing we have, and it came with this, is a magnetic base antenna, and I've not opened this up, so let's tear open the bag here. Let's see what we've got. The antenna itself is not all that amazing, and then this magnetic base. So we got an SO239 on this end of the magnetic base. It does have something like felt, but it's not centered correctly. SO259 on this end that that will go into the radio, and then this will plug in or screw on just like that. So no seal, no silicone grease. I'm gonna have to press down to get that started, I guess. And you know, that's it. You know, you just screw it on. It's similar to other antennas we've done, but certainly not made as well. And that's it. You know, I think KY4KAT paid $23, $24. I think when I just looked it up, it was coming in at $25.99. So, you know, because of scarcity and everything, it's gone up $1. Probably not. Anyway, we're going to take this out to the truck and we're going to run it through some of the same paces. But, you know, I don't have high expectations, but it'll be fun just to see how something this inexpensive and cheap actually operates out similar to other antennas like the Comet and the compact antenna and so forth, just to see, you know, how it does. And maybe it'll give us some surprises. I did look at the reviews for the Eightwood, and I don't think I'm going to be surprised based on those reviews, but we're going to try it out in the real world. Just reading somebody else's reviews sometimes doesn't do it justice. So in the next segment, let's take it out to the truck and let's run it through some of the same standing wave ratio SWR tests that we've done with some other antennas, and then take it out and see how well it gets into the repeater. I'll see you here in the next segment. Alrighty, so cloudy day today, a little bit of rain, but I did put the antenna right in the middle of my roof. This is where a lot of antennas are pretty darn happy. And not all. We've certainly seen some antennas that do better elsewhere, and we're going to test some additional locations in a minute. But that's where it is currently. Now let's come into the truck and let's see what kind of SWR readings we get with this antenna. Let's turn on the MFJ antenna analyzer. Looks like our batteries are in good shape. And, you know, it's about 5.4, but we're up down around 140 on the 2 meter band. Let's bring it up a little bit here. Hey, it is starting to drop. We're at about 145 there, almost 146. Hey, look at that. 1.3-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. That's not quite our repeater frequency, but that's not too bad. You know, if you were in the lower part of the range, but look how that disappears. We want to stay below 2, so starting at about 145, The way this is tuned, you could, without a tuner, you could potentially get away with it there, but you really want to be under 2. That's at 145. That's really not that great because you want it to be usable further down in the band. Now, if we come on up to where it was the lowest, that was at 146.5, pretty close. 1.3, which is good, but you'd have to, be utilizing a frequency down around there to get the best use out of that. Our repeater is at 146.88, so let's come up to that. Ooh, my goodness, that is a sharp uptick. That's our repeater frequency, 1.7. So it would be usable at that frequency, but not as good as it could have been. But it really starts to go back up quickly. That dip is extremely pronounced. So now we're back above 3. If we want to keep it below 2, started at 145.5, and the range that we have to try to keep it around 2 is 145.5 to 147. So for a lot of folks that aren't using our repeater in particular, this is probably not going to work for them very well. But it is what it is there in the middle. Now, it might be different somewhere else. Now, let's go to UHF, and let's see what we got there, because sometimes these little antennas work a little better on UHF than they do VHF. So right here at 441, let's go down. So let's get it to where it's about 2 again. We want to be below that, but let's start there. That's at 438. Now we're going to start coming up. Now our repeater input frequency is 443,600. About right there. So 1.8, and 448,600. Oops, a little too far there. That's coming in at a 2.3, so it's really not going to be helpful. I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. There's so many other antennas that would operate much better than that. And if we keep going up in the band, you can see it does drop back down. Now we're at 1.3, so this actually does better from a tuning perspective, a little bit higher up. Not quite 462 for GMRS, but there's 462. This would work for GMRS. For that. So, that's kind of where we are. And then, of course, it starts to spike back up. And we're getting a lot of good dips as we go up in the 400 megahertz range. There's 1.2 at 473. But back down where we want to be, 448, 443, not as good. There's 448, 2.3, and then 443.6. was below 2, wasn't it? Let's try to dial that in. Very sensitive. That's pretty darn close right there. 1.8. So it's not great there in the middle. But let's check a couple of other areas. We won't go through the whole sweep in the corner and the back middle, but let's see how it does in some other areas in the next segment. Okay, so now we're on that back center tail light right in the middle. And I've seen some antennas do really well there. And then let's come back into the truck. Let's turn on our analyzer. Let's see how we do here. So again, good voltage. Well, that's at 148. Let's come down. So you can see starting at 149-ish, it's over 5. Now as we come down in the band, when does it become below 2? About 147.3, somewhere in that ballpark, but it's a really sharp dip. So you can see we're right at 1.92 right there, 147.4. Now if we come on down to our repeater frequency, which is, well, let's just go to the low here. That's 146,600. For some repeaters, that would be like right where you need it to be. That would be beautiful. For ours, we're up just a little bit from that. We're at 88. So we're just going to go up 0.2. And we're going to come in at 1.4. So for our repeater, it would be fine as far as what we're going to be receiving on there. And then what do we got here? If we come on down, when does it go away? So we go back above 2 at 145.9. Again, the amount of width that you have to try to use this antenna is very limited. So again, very sharp dips. If you were to look at this on a graph, it would be a pointed dip. It would have a point to it instead of that nice roll that you see on other antennas. Now let's go up to UHF quickly. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole band. Oops, turned it off. Let's go to UHF. And let's see what we get at 443, 448. And probably something similar, I'm guessing. 443, you can see we're coming down the band. 443, our lowest there is 1.4. 443, 600. 1.4, very usable. 448. 448, 600 with the offset. Very sensitive here, but yeah, about right there. 1.9. So again, it would work for our repeater, but for some other repeaters, depending on what your pairs are, it may be slightly better, or it may be right on the edge without some kind of tuner. All right, let's move it to one more location on the truck that some antennas really like, and let's see what how it operates there. All righty, we're on the back passenger corner. Now, as we've seen, some antennas are really happy in the middle. Other antennas are really happy in the corner. What we've seen is this one, I believe, is going to be happy in the middle. It's going to give it a good ground plane and omnidirectional from a transmit standpoint. But let's try it in this corner like some of the other antennas we've looked at, and let's see what other numbers we might grab from this location. And let me go to VHF first, and let's see. You know, you never know. So in that back left corner, where do we start getting below 2? Right there at 147. These numbers are almost identical. If you go back and look at the earlier part of the video, these numbers aren't changing a whole lot. If we come down to the repeater frequency here at the club, we're coming in at about 1.6. Pretty close to it. And then if we come down to where it really dips all the way down, it's about a 1.3 at 146.5. So not as good as it was in the middle, because I think we were able to get 145.5 with the lowest SWR. Now if we go back up towards the top, again, it starts to become what I would consider to be unusable, greater than 2 at 147.3-ish, 147.27. So again, very narrow. It's maybe it would work in your area, this particular one, but I get a feeling the quality control on these is probably not, they may be slightly, you know, left or right of this antenna. You just never know. But they're going to be very narrow. And if we go to UHF quickly, just so that we can see the difference. But I can already tell this is going to work best in the middle of your roof, not on the corner like another antenna we've tested. So anyway, where does it go the lowest? Right there, actually, where I was. 442, 1.6. Not great, but it would work. Let's come up to 443 and down just a little bit more. 1.8. How about 448.6? 2.2. So you can see it's not really usable. I mean, in a pinch, but I wouldn't want to use this long term for 70 centimeters. So that pretty much tells the tale of the tape. It wants to be in the middle of the roof, not on the corner, and we need to be right over here. And that's where my Comet was always happiest and gave me such good service. So let's take it out to our favorite testing place in the next segment, and let's see how well we get into the repeater. Alrighty, so now we're at our favorite place, or at least one of my favorite places for these tests. This is about 26 miles away. We've tested other antennas here. I'll try to put at least one card up in the top right where you can see some of that. We just saw the APRS try to check in, but notice it did not get a reply back. And I've noticed on the trip up here, I don't know that I'm going to show up on the map at all. On APRS, where if I'll try to show you a map of the 9-inch compact antenna that I just did, and it checked in pretty well, and the 7.5-inch as well, going around the lake. But I don't believe I've got a waypoint on APRS yet coming out of my neighborhood up here, and then we'll check it again when we get back. Let's put out a call to KY4KKG. KY4YUG, excuse me. I'll get it right in a minute. KK4YUG. And let's see what the response is like on the receive and how he receives me. This is KY4BDP Mobile antenna check with this really inexpensive Chinese 4-inch on the middle of my roof antenna. So that didn't even make it all the way to
for BDP, this is KK4YUG.
the left there.
You're sounding good, brother.
Yeah, I'm noticing that you're not making it all the way into the strongest receive in the white portion of my my power bar here, or receive strength. Not anywhere, well, you're just not making it all the way to the right in the white area, and certainly not into the red on my radio. And you sound pretty good, but I think I can hear a touch of hiss in the background.
Can hear a little bit of hiss, but I'm on medium power. I should be hitting the repeater good enough to throw to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just on my receive from the repeater. It's just not as strong. And in the video, I'll throw up a couple of other screenshots of other antennas I've tested just to show that this one on the receive side is just not quite as good. You can see it's dropping down just a little bit more.
Audible. It's I can hear a little bit of hiss in the background, you know, which is no big deal. I mean, as far as that goes, you're clear as far as your audio and getting to me, and everything's working great.
Yeah, roger that. I kind of expected to be able to make it in pretty well, but I can definitely tell the receive is not nearly as sensitive on this antenna, and I wouldn't think it would be. And I was telling the folks here in the video on APRS, my FTM is checking in with the APRS receiver on VFOB, and I don't think it's been able to actually touch the APRS strong enough to get a signal. I'm going to put up a map in the video just to show that it's having a much harder time checking in with APRS versus some of the other antennas that I've tested.
Watched a couple of your videos today and how you were laying that out with the compact antenna, the 9.5 inch, and that was pretty cool. I'll have to check into that APRS stuff. I haven't gotten into that yet.
Well, it can be used to send messages and a whole lot of other things. Currently, I'm just using it to show how the antenna is able to reach our APRS receiver and then put it up on a map so that you can kind of get an idea of how well it's able to transmit and in some cases receive. Well, that's it for the test out here at Mount Victory, or as I like to call it, White Lily. And appreciate you coming back with me here on Mr. Steve, KK4YUG, and I'll let you go. This is KY4BDP Mobile.
Roger, KY4BDP. I'll let you go, son. Enjoy your testing and you're out running around. This is KK4YUG. I'll be clear.
So you can see it's coming in at about right there, and that's not all of the white area, and to go red you have to come all the way over here. So all the other antennas, including the short little stubby that I've got that's a middle of the roof 10-inch model, is doing better than this antenna. And as we saw with the SWR, it's so narrowly tuned it may not work for everybody depending on your repeater pairs for VHF and UHF. Well, let's take it back to the compound and let's do a summary on this antenna. And no surprises here, and let's see if I would recommend this. So I'll see you in the next segment.
So what do I think of this little antenna from China? Well, it works. It is very narrowly tuned, and I wouldn't be able to swear to the fact that the one that you would get from off of Amazon would be even tuned similarly to this one. I'd like to think so, but you never know. I mean, it is an antenna with a magnetic base. I mean, you have everything you need to plug it into your radio. But it's certainly, because it's so small and there's not going to be as much coil on the inside, it's not going to be as sensitive. And we saw that with the replies we were getting back from the repeater. This is not nearly as sensitive as, say, the Comet or the 10.5 inch magnetic antenna I've used, or any of the compact antennas. And when we're looking at the APRS map, the only time I showed up on this map was when I went to Chick-fil-A. I mean, you see the box out to the right, I didn't get picked up at all over there, and the repeater's over there in the top left corner, so it wasn't getting into the APRS at all. but it does like to be in the middle of the roof, and that's pretty common. That's what a lot of antennas like to do. The compact antennas like to be in a corner, but my Comet like to be right in the middle. You get a good ground plane, and you get good omnidirectional signal strength right in the middle of your roof. So would I recommend this antenna? I don't think so. There's no power rating listed anywhere in the documentation. Other antennas will tell you what kind of duty cycle you can get and how much power you can put into them. I didn't see anything that actually said that information on Amazon. Maybe you'll be luckier. So I have no idea. I was putting high power into it just to see if it could take it, and it did. So for the length of time that I used it, it was able to work. Well, for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association, I hope you liked this little antenna review. Can't say that I would recommend it, but it was fun to test out anyway. I'm KY4 BDP Brian, and we'll see you down the road. 73.